The city glowed like a promise it could not keep, neon bleeding into the night, cars crawling along wet streets, sirens somewhere far off like distant wolves. Adrian Moretti watched it all from the glass wall of the hotel penthouse, a tumbler of whiskey in his hand, the skyline spread beneath him like something he owned. Behind him, laughter spilled from the bedroom, soft, breathy, polished like the rest of her. Bianca lay across white sheets, one leg bent, smoke curling from the cigarette between her fingers. Come back to bed, Adrian, she said. We still have time before your world starts calling again. His world was already calling. His phone buzzed on the table beside him, face down, screen lighting the dim room with a desperate glow. He did not look at it. One night, he thought, one night where I am not a husband, not a boss, not a father to a future heir. He was not sure he even wanted. The buzzing stopped, the silence after, somehow heavier in another part of the city, far from the polished elevators and champagne. Lucia Navarro Moretti bent over the bathroom sink, one hand on the cold marble, the other pressed to her lower belly. The first cramp had been a dull ache in the afternoon. She ignored it. There was always pain in this house, some of it you learn to live with, but when she saw the blood thin and red against the white of the tiles, her breath left her chest like someone had punched through her ribs. Not now, she whispered, not this. She looked at the silver ring on her finger, the one Adrian had slid there with promises of safety and forever, promises that evaporated every time he walked out without saying where he was going. The cramps twisted sharper. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands, scrolling to his name, Adrian. She pressed call in the hotel. His phone buzzed again, closer this time, rolling slightly on the glass from the vibration. Bianca exhaled a lazy plume of smoke. You gonna get that? No, he answered without looking back. She lifted a brow. What if it is important? If it were important, they would call Vito. It might be your wife. Exactly. A bitter smile flickered over his mouth. He threw back the last of the whiskey, the burn familiar and easy. The phone stopped. The silence after felt almost like victory in the mansion. Lucia listened to the ringing, cut off. No answer, just the empty click of a call that died alone. She tried again, each second heavier than the last, her heart beating too fast, her vision blurring at the edges. He would answer. He had to. He was always telling her that everything in this city bowed to his will. Surely his own phone could obey him too. The call dropped to voicemail, his recorded voice sliding into her ear, smooth, confident, a man who carried the world like a well-tailored suit. Leave a message. She hung up. Another wave of pain crashed through her. Her knees hit the floor. She tried to stand. Her hand left a smear of red on the counter in the penthouse. Adrian walked back to the bed. Bianca reached for him, nails brushing his wrist. See, the world did not end because you ignored it. Not yet, he murmured against her shoulder. The phone buzzed again on the table, longer this time, more insistent. Then again, he cursed under his breath. Persistent tonight. Bianca laughed. Maybe someone died. He smirked. If someone died, I would be getting a different kind of call. The buzzing stopped and did not return. On the bathroom floor of the mansion, Lucia curled on her side, sweat cooling on her skin, her nightgown clinging, blood beneath her hands too bright to ignore. She forced herself upright, leaned against the wall, the world tilting. You are going to lose this baby. The thought arrived simple and cold. This baby that was never fully hers, never fully his, only a piece of hope that had slipped through the cracks of a marriage built on deals and gunpowder. She fumbled for her phone again. This time she did not call. She pressed record. Her voice shook as she spoke. Adrian, it is me. I know you are busy. I know you do not like when I call at night, but she swallowed, the pain crawling up her spine. I am bleeding. I do not know what is happening. I think it is the baby. Her breath hitched. I found your jacket today. It smelled like someone else's perfume. I did not say anything because I am so tired of fighting with ghosts, but I needed you to know tonight. I needed you to choose me. A sob tore through her, but she kept going. If you get this, I am going to the hospital. I do not know what will be left when the night is over. Maybe the baby, maybe us, maybe nothing. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Either way, this feels like goodbye. She ended the recording, hit send. The message flew into the electronic void toward a man who was not listening. She dragged herself to the bedroom, pulled on a coat over the ruined nightgown, grabbed her bag, stumbled down the long staircase that always made her feel small. No one was in the hall. The mansion staff kept their distance after dark. Adrian liked his nights quiet. She made it to the driveway, the cold air hitting her lungs like knives. She blinked at the line of black cars until one came into focus. She banged weakly on the window. Enzo, the driver, looked up, eyes widening. Mrs. Moretti Hospital, she gasped. Now. He helped her into the back seat, his hands gentle, his face pale as the car pulled away from the estate. Lucia pressed her forehead against the window. Streetlights blurred into gold streaks, pain blooming in waves in the penthouse. The night spun on music, low laughter. Soft world, small and selfish. Adrian finally reached for his phone, more out of habit than concern. The screen showed missed calls, 3-4 from Lucia. His jaw tightened. He set the phone back down without opening the log. Guilt pricked at the edges of his mind, then slid away. She always dramatized, always needed proof. He still cared, always dragging her insecurities into his nights. Tonight he wanted to forget. He had a wife whose eyes had grown too sad, whose smile had turned into something he only saw at charity events. Bianca moved closer, her Lips at his ear tell me you are mine tonight, Adrian, tonight. He agreed only tonight, but somewhere beneath the silk sheets his phone vibrated once more, the last message arriving quietly unopened at the hospital. Fluorescent lights hummed above Lucia. The world alternated between sharp and blurry voices overlapping. Nurses moving fast. How far along are you? Any cramping before today? Do you have someone we can call? She tried to answer, words tangling in pain. He will come, she thought. If he listens, if he cares, if there is anything left between us, he will come. They wheeled her into a room, cool hands on her skin, a mask over her mouth. Count your breaths. She tried, but consciousness slipped away before she reached 5. Time became a place without walls. When she woke, the world was too quiet. No machines beeping, no nurses hovering, just the soft hush of a room with closed blinds. Her body felt hollow, her throat dry. A woman in light blue scrub stood by the bed, eyes kind, mouth set in that careful, professional line that tries not to break. Mrs. Moretti. Lucia swallowed the baby. The word scraped her throat like broken glass. The nurse hesitated just long enough for Lucia to understand. I am so sorry. The room shifted colors, draining away. There will be bleeding for a while, the nurse said gently. And you need rest. You came in just in time for us to help you. You lost a lot of blood just in time to lose everything that mattered. The nurse glanced at the empty chair near the bed. Is anyone coming for you? We tried the emergency contact number. No one answered. Lucia turned her head, stared at the blank wall. He is busy. The nurse's face tightened. Just for a second. Do you want us to try again? Lucia thought of the ignored calls, the unopened messages, the jacket that smelled like another woman's perfume. No, she said, I do not want you to call him. The nurse nodded slowly. If you change your mind, I will not. Hours later, they discharged her with papers and pills and careful instructions. Do not lift anything heavy. Do not strain. Try not to be alone. She stepped out into the cold night air alone. Enzo waited by the curb, eyes full of questions he did not dare ask. Back home, Mrs. Moretti home. The word felt wrong now. She nodded, climbed into the car, held herself together all the way to the mansion. The house greeted her with silence. No lights left on in the windows, no coat on the chair, no husband in the hall. Inside, the foyer smelled like expensive cleaner and empty promises. She walked slowly up the staircase, each step a reminder of the weight that was no longer inside her. In the bedroom, she sat on the edge of the bed, pulled out her phone. The screen showed the last message. Sent voice note, 2 blue ticks under it. He had seen it. He had chosen not to answer. She pressed play anyway, listened to her own shaking voice spill out of the speaker, a version of herself that still believed he might come, that still believed he might pick up. When the message ended, the silence that followed was absolute. Lucia stared at the screen, then opened the call log. The missed calls glared back at her, tiny tombstones for everything she had tried to save. Her thumb hovered over his name for a heartbeat. Temptation flared. Call him, scream at him, beg him, plead for comfort from the man who let you bleed alone. Instead, she pressed delete. His contact disappeared from the favorites list, a small, almost meaningless erasure. But it was the first step. She lay back on the bed, one hand on her flat stomach, tears finally free. The mafia boss ignored his wife's last call. He had not just lost a child tonight, he had lost the last chance to keep the woman who still believed he could be more than a monster. In a perfect suit in the dark, Lucia whispered into the empty room, goodbye, Adrian. Not loud, not dramatic, just a truth spoken at the end of something already broken. She did not know yet how far that goodbye would reach, how many borders it would cross, how many lives it would change. But somewhere in the city, under the neon and the smoke, a man raised a glass in a hotel bed, believing tomorrow would be just another day. He had no idea his wife was already gone 3 months earlier. The mansion did not feel like a prison yet. Lucia still believed pain could be managed if you stayed quiet enough, if you walked lightly enough, if you folded yourself into the shape of the wife everyone expected. She moved through those halls like someone afraid to disturb the dust, chandeliers glowing above her without warmth, the housekeepers lowering their eyes every time she passed, and the guards never meeting her gaze for more than a second. Lucia Navarro Moretti was the wife of a king, but queens in this world were decorations, not partners. The mornings always started the same. Adrian leaving before sunrise, dressed in a suit that cost more than her monthly allowance, the smell of cologne and gun oil faint on him. His voice clipped, cold, distant. I have meetings all day, do not wait up. He said it every morning as if repetition could make distance feel normal. Lucia never asked who he was meeting. She already knew business for a man like Adrian meant power, money, threats, bullets, lies, women. After he left, she sat alone at the long dining table, her breakfast delivered by staff who never spoke more than necessary. The silence pressed into her skin like damp cloth. She hated the quiet. It echoed too loudly inside her head, reminded her she was a guest in her own home, reminded her this life was never hers by choice. Her father had made the choice for her that night 3 years ago when Adrian Moretti walked into their failing restaurant and offered protection. Protection. Your daughter can help you pay off the debt. He had said, his voice smooth enough to hide the blade underneath. "You give me her hand, I give you safety for life." Her father agreed before Lucia could speak, and by the time she realized what had been traded, the deal had already been sealed, cooked, signed. Blood-bound Adrian had been gentle at first, the kind of gentle that could be mistaken for kindness, until she learned it was not gentleness at all, just politeness, until ownership settled firmly in place. He gave her everything except himself. He gave her diamonds but never gave her his eyes. He gave her cars but never gave her truth. He gave her a mansion but never gave her peace. The realization came slowly, like mold creeping across the foundation. She noticed the little absences, the late nights, the untouched dinners, the shirts that smelled like something unfamiliar, the lipstick smudge on the inside collar one morning barely noticeable, but there the number saved under a woman's name disguised as Marco Plumbing Service, and the way he guarded his second phone like it was filled with gold. She said nothing, not at first. Wives of men like him learned early that silence was safer than questions. Silence was easier to swallow than anger. One night she stood at the balcony watching the lights of the city flicker below. She thought of calling her father, but what could he do? He had sold her to a man whose empire could swallow the whole neighborhood in a day. Even if he wanted to help, he could not touch Adrian Moretti. So Lucia stayed and endured, and learned how to fold her heart smaller and smaller until she barely felt anything. But everything changed on the morning she woke up, dizzy with a faint bitterness on her tongue. She leaned over the sink, nausea rolling through her. She frowned, confused. She had felt this before, years ago, before the wedding, before her life turned sharp. She reached for the drawer in the bathroom, pulled out a test, her hands trembling. She waited the longest 3 minutes of her life. When the 2 lines appeared, she pressed a hand to her mouth, choking on a sob. She slid down the wall, knees against her chest, not sure whether to laugh or cry. A baby, a child of hers, a child of his, a chance. Something inside her whispered a chance to not be alone anymore, a chance to love something that could not hurt her. She waited all day for Adrian to come home. She rehearsed the words in her head. Maybe this news would change something. Maybe this news would pull him back. Maybe a child would soften his edges, make him come home earlier, laugh more, hold her hand again, be the man he had pretended to be in the first month of marriage. He came home at midnight, the scent of expensive perfume clinging to him like an accusation. He walked past her without looking up. The anger rose in her throat, hot and acidic. She followed him to the dressing room. "I need to tell you something." Her voice small, too small. He loosened his tie, not turning around. "Can it wait?" "No," she whispered. He sighed. "Fine. Speak." She opened her mouth, but the words stuck. His phone buzzed. He checked it instantly. The way his eyes softened, the way his thumb brushed the screen told her everything she needed to know. The message was from Bianca. Even without seeing the name, Lucia recognized the way a man smiles only when texting someone he should not be texting. Her heart folded in on itself. The news she had wanted to share suddenly felt fragile, unsafe. She remained silent. He slipped his jacket off his shoulder, and that is when she smelled it, the same perfume she had found once on his collar weeks ago, stronger now, fresh, recent. Something cracked inside her like porcelain hitting stone. "Forget it," she muttered, turning away. He barely noticed. "Good," he said dismissively. "I have an early morning." That night she sat in the dark, hands on her belly, whispering, "It is just you and me, little one. We will be okay. I promise you that." She did not know then how fragile that promise actually was. She did not know how quickly everything would be ripped away the next day. She found the receipt tucked in his pocket, a hotel suite, 2 nights, Bianca Rossi, her name printed clearly like fate mocking her. Lucia sat on the edge of the bed, staring at it, the truth finally whole, heavy, undeniable. That afternoon she went to her doctor, confirmed her pregnancy, got the first ultrasound photo, the tiny white shape flickering inside her. She pressed the image to her chest, tears soaking the edges. Her child, her reason to leave, her reason to stay, her reason to breathe. That night she made a plan, not a dramatic escape, not running away in panic. She would wait, gather strength, gather documents, gather the pieces of her old life she had hidden deep, gather enough money under her name. She would leave him, but she wanted to do it on her terms, when she was ready, when she was strong, when she was carrying more than heartbreak. She did not know that fate would not wait for her plan. Fate would not give her months. Fate would take everything in a single night and force her into a goodbye she had not prepared to say. This was the calm before the storm, the quiet before the bleeding, the last breath before everything shattered. The night she lost the baby split her world open, but the days after carved the wound even deeper. She moved through the mansion like a ghost, body sore, heart hollow, eyes bruised from crying. She spoke to no one, ate almost nothing, and slept in short trembling bursts that ended in tears. The image of the white hospital ceiling kept flashing in her mind, the doctor's voice, gentle, too gentle. "I am sorry, there was nothing we could do." The house stayed silent. Adrian returned 2 days later, walking inside like nothing had changed, like the world had not caved in on her, like she had not bled alone, begging for help that never came. He walked past her in the hall without slowing. "Lucy," he said, heading toward the kitchen, "I need coffee." That was all. "No, where were you?" "No, are you all right?" "No." What happened? He did not ask. She did not answer. That evening he left again without an explanation, without looking at her, without noticing the way she held herself like someone barely stitched together. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking of The heartbeat that had existed for such a short time, the heartbeat that was supposed to save her or at least give her something to live for. She played the voicemail. She left him in the bathroom that night not because she wanted to but because she needed to see something, hear something, feel something. She played it hoping maybe he had listened, maybe he had cared even for a second. The message showed, played, no response, no reply, no missed call, nothing. The silence cut deeper than any blade. The next morning Enzo quietly brought her a bag dropped at the gate by someone anonymous. Inside she found the hospital discharge papers, the blood test results, and the ultrasound photo she had left in the hospital. In her confusion she stared at the picture, the tiny shape inside her, the child she never got to hold. She pressed the paper to her chest, her tears falling slow and heavy. That was the moment something inside her hardened, not broken. No, this was not defeat, this was decision. Lucia stood up from the bed, walked to the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror, her hair tangled, her eyes swollen and hollow, her skin pale. She did not recognize the woman staring back. She whispered softly, you cannot die here. She said it again, stronger, you cannot die in this house. She made coffee for herself, hands steady. For the first time in weeks, she took the ultrasound and placed it gently in the drawer of a small desk, this time not out of heartbreak but out of tribute. Then she pulled out the metal cash box she had hidden behind books since the early months of the marriage, years of saving, small amounts of cash, tips from charity events, stashed money, gifts from her father, old savings she never dared to touch until now. She counted it. It was enough, not comfortable, not luxury, but enough. She found the documents she had hidden, her passport, birth certificate, old ID papers. She had tucked them away when fear first whispered to her months ago. Something deep inside her must have known this day would come. She booked an appointment with a lawyer outside the city using a name she had not used in years. She told no one, not even Enzo. She walked to the gardens that evening, letting the cold air calm her heartbeat. She replayed Adrian's footsteps in her mind, the sound of him leaving every night since their marriage, the click of the door, the silence after. She remembered the softness he once had, the early days when he seemed human, when his laugh reached his eyes, when he held her hand under the table at dinner, when he kissed her slowly on the balcony. She wondered if that version of him had ever truly existed or if she had loved a ghost molded by her own hope. The next day she traveled to the lawyer's office alone, sat in the waiting room staring at her hands, her stomach twisting, not with pain this time but with anticipation. When her name was called, Lucia Navarro, she felt something like oxygen fill her lungs. It had been months since she heard her name unsuffocated by titles. Inside the office she explained she wanted to know her legal rights, what she could take, what she could claim, whether she could disappear without leaving a trace. The lawyer listened quietly, scribbling notes. She did not mention the miscarriage, not yet, not until she could say the words without trembling. When she returned to the mansion, the guards did not question her. Adrian was gone again, leaving her with hours of silence, empty rooms, and time to think. The plan grew slowly, piece by piece. She would not run in panic. She would walk out carefully, deliberately, step by step, until she no longer belonged to this house. One night she went to the terrace wrapped in a coat, staring at the city lights, feeling the cold seep into her fingers and into her resolve. She whispered to the air, I am leaving, and for the first time the mansion did not echo the words back. It was like the walls already knew, like they had been waiting for her to realize she had a life outside their marble cage. The following afternoon she visited her father in the tiny apartment he had moved into after selling the restaurant. He opened the door, surprised to see her, jaw tightening at the sight of her pale face. Mihija, he said softly. What happened? She did not cry. She simply said, I lost the baby. His eyes broke. He held her trembling shoulders, whispered, I am so sorry. She looked at him, then asked the question she had been holding for years, why did you give me to him? He closed his eyes, guilt crawling up his expression. I thought I was saving you. I thought he would protect you. He had no idea what he had delivered her into. She told him she was leaving. He did not try to stop her. He hugged her long and slow, told her, I will help you with whatever you need. For the first time in years Lucia felt not alone. She returned home that night late, the house dim, the smell of cigars and cologne lingering in the air. Adrian was in the lounge pouring himself a drink. He looked up briefly. Where were you? Out, she answered, her voice flat. He raised a brow. With who? Myself. She walked upstairs without looking back. In the bedroom she opened the closet, packed one small suitcase, not enough for a permanent escape but enough for a beginning. She slid her phone under the mattress, switched it to silent, not wanting the sound of his name or messages or calls, not anymore. The miscarriage had stolen something from her, but also given something back, a rebirth, painful but necessary. It cut the last thread that tied her to him. 1 week later, while he was away, she stood at the front gates for a long moment, breathing deep, tasting freedom. Already she stepped into the waiting taxi, Enzo gripping the wheel, fear in his eyes. Mrs. Moretti, are you sure? She touched his arm. No, Moretti does not exist anymore. Please drive. The car pulled away from the mansion, the gates closing behind her, as if sealing off a past that would never rise again. Lucia looked out the window, her eyes steady, her heartbeat slow, her hand on her stomach, not from grief now but from strength. This time she was not running away. She was walking toward the life she should have always had. The goodbye was already written, even if Adrian had not heard it yet. Lucia did not disappear overnight. Her vanishing was not a single dramatic moment but a quiet unraveling of the life she once carried like a heavy coat. The city behind her faded slowly as the taxi rolled farther away until the skyline was nothing more than faint light bruises against the horizon. She breathed differently now, deeper, fuller, as if oxygen tasted new, as if the world outside the mansion had been waiting years for her to step into it. The taxi took her to the train station on the far end of the city, a place Adrian's men never watched, a place where no one cared who she was or who she had belonged to. She bought a ticket with cash, the machine spitting out a small rectangle of paper that felt like the first key she had ever held. She boarded the night train, her suitcase small, her coat wrapped tight around her, one hand pressed to her chest where her heartbeat thudded like a fist against a locked door. As the train pulled away, Lucia looked out the window and whispered quietly, "I am not going back, not ever." The city lights thinned, the towns blurred, the darkness outside turned into a gentle hum, the rhythm of metal on metal soothing her nerves. The first few hours she stayed tense, muscles tight, mind racing with what ifs. What if Adrian checked the cameras? What if his men stopped the taxi? What if he realized she was gone before she made it far enough? But none of those things happened. No one chased her, no one appeared, and eventually, exhaustion tugged her into a shallow sleep. Cheek against the cold glass, she arrived in a small coastal town at dawn. The air smelled like salt and freedom, the streets empty, the shops closed, the sky painted in soft pinks. She walked with her suitcase until she found a cheap guest house with peeling paint and a welcome sign that buzzed faintly. She paid cash again, signed no name on the guest book, and locked the door behind her. The room was tiny, but it felt bigger than the mansion had ever felt. Lucia slept for hours, heavy, dreamless sleep. When she woke, she stared at the cracked ceiling above her and realized her first thought was not fear. Her first thought was, "I am alive." The next few days she stayed inside, planning, thinking, clearing her mind. She ate simple food bought from the small grocery down the street. She kept her head low, wore sunglasses, and a hood, moved like someone learning how to be invisible. But inside her something was waking, something she had forgotten. She possessed strength. One morning she walked along the beach, cold water brushing her ankles, birds wheeling above her, the wind carrying her hair across her face. She breathed in deeply, each breath washing something old out of her. She pressed her hand to her stomach, not out of sorrow anymore but out of remembrance. She whispered, "I am sorry, my little one. I hope you forgive me." The tide pulled back and left smooth stones at her feet. She picked one up, a small round piece of slate warm from the sun. She kept it in her pocket from that moment on, a reminder that not everything taken leaves emptiness, sometimes it leaves space. She got a job within a week, helping at a small seaside bakery owned by an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes. Her name was Marlene. She asked no questions about Lucia's past. She noticed the shadows in Lucia's eyes, but did not pry. She simply said, "You can work mornings if you want," and Lucia nodded, grateful for a routine that did not involve pain. The bakery smelled of warm bread, sugar, vanilla, roasted coffee, and Marlene hummed old songs while kneading dough. Lucia learned quickly she liked the work, the quiet, the rhythm, the simplicity. Customers came in smiling or sleepy or hurried, and none of them knew her last name. None of them knew Adrian. None of them looked at her like she was less. She found joy in small things, wiping counters, arranging pastries, tying her hair back with a ribbon she bought for $2. She found herself smiling without forcing it. Marlene noticed one morning, said, "Your eyes look lighter today, Lucia," and Lucia felt the truth of it. Life moved gently, steady, warm, predictable, until one rainy afternoon when the bell above the bakery door rang and Daniel Hayes walked in, drenched from the storm, tall shoulders shaking, rain from his jacket, messy dark hair falling across his forehead. He smiled apologetically. "Sorry to track in water. I did not mean to bring the ocean with me." Lucia felt something shift inside her, not romantic, not dramatic, just awareness. Like the air recognized him before she did. He ordered black coffee and a cinnamon roll, paid cash, left a generous tip, smiled again, and left freckles on his cheeks from the rain. She watched him walk away, not because he was handsome, though he was, but because he seemed real, solid, grounded, like someone who had never belonged to a world of guns and silent men. Daniel came back the next morning, then the next. He always ordered the same coffee, same pastry, always smiled with the same warmth. Marlene teased him gently, "One day you like our pastries or our company," and he laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Both, I guess." Lucia found herself laughing too, a soft, small laugh that surprised her. Days passed, weeks slipped quietly into place. Her hair grew longer, her skin regained color, her eyes gradually lost their haunted glassiness. Her nightmares faded, her mornings tasted of coffee instead of dread. She learned the names of the locals, she learned which seashells washed up after storms, she learned that she could exist without being owned. But while Lucia built her new life brick by brick, something darker stirred miles away. Adrian came home one evening and found the mansion too quiet, the bedroom too empty, her perfume fading from the fabric, her phone missing, her shoes gone, her clothes removed. No note, no explanation. Enzo told him she had taken a taxi, and he thought she was visiting her father. Adrian froze, eyes narrowing. Where did she go? When did she leave? Enzo swallowed hard. "Sir," she did not say. Adrian walked through the house slowly, each room a reminder of absence each corner echoing her footsteps that were no longer there. He found the drawer open, the ultrasound missing, the metal cash box gone. He felt something cold crawl into his spine, something he had not felt in years. Fear. He played her last voicemail for the first time, her voice shaking through the speaker, the truth hitting him like a bullet. He stood still, jaw tight, hands trembling as he listened to the goodbye he ignored. He stared at the screen when it ended, the silence pressing into his bones. He whispered her name, Lucia. Where did you go? He ordered his men to search the city, search the hospitals, search her father's home, search everything. No trace, nothing. For the first time in his life, Adrian Moretti could not control the outcome. Lucia was gone, gone in a way he could not track, gone in a way that felt permanent. And while he hunted her through shadows and streets and memories, Lucia stood in the bakery window watching Daniel laugh with Marlene, a warm light wrapping around them. She rested her forehead on the cool glass and whispered to herself, I am safe. But safety has a way of breaking when the past decides to rise again, and the past was already walking toward her. For almost 2 months, Lucia lived a life that felt like borrowed sunlight, soft mornings in the bakery, warm bread under her hands, Marlene humming behind her, Daniel dropping by with that shy, crooked smile that felt like a small blessing every time the sea wind carried salt through her hair. And she felt lighter than she had felt in years, as if the weight of the mansion, the weight of the miscarriage, the weight of loving a man who did not love her back had finally slipped off her shoulders like an old coat. In those weeks, Lucia began to feel like a person again, not a possession, not a wife, not a shadow in a marble palace. She woke with purpose, she slept without fear, she breathed like someone allowed to exist. The town wrapped around her like a warm blanket, strangers turning into familiar faces turning into friends, and Daniel turning into something she could not yet name, only feel. But peace has a scent, and danger always smells it sooner or later. One evening just before closing, the sky cracked open with a sudden storm, rain hammering the glass, the lights flickering. Lucia wiped down the last table, humming softly, the scent of cinnamon lingering in the air. Marlene had already gone home, telling her, lock up tight, sweet girl, see you tomorrow. Lucia smiled, nodded, tucked a loose curl behind her ear. Then the bell above the bakery door rang, soft, slow, intentional. Lucia turned, expecting Daniel dripping from the rain, ready with his usual half grin, but the man standing in the doorway was not Daniel, it was Enzo, soaked from the weather, his dark coat plastered to his frame, his breath shaky, his eyes full of a fear she had never seen in him before. Mrs. Navarro, he whispered, you need to leave now. Her stomach dropped, her hands tightening on the cloth she held. Enzo, please, she whispered, tell me what happened. He stepped forward, voice trembling. He has found you. Lucia's breath stopped, not a gasp, not a cry, just stopped. Adrian. Enzo nodded slowly. The storm outside matched the storm climbing up her spine. How? She whispered. A receipt, Enzo said. From the bakery, someone posted a photo of the cinnamon rolls online. Daniel was in the background. And you were in the corner. Adrian saw you. He tracked the photo. He is already on his way. Lucia felt the walls tilt, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. He was coming, the one man she had spent her entire soul trying to escape. She grabbed her bag, her coat, the small stone she carried everywhere, the one that reminded her she could survive loss. She stuffed them into the bag with shaking hands. Enzo moved to the door. Go out the back, run. I will try to stall him. But Lucia was already frozen, her mind full of memories. The night she bled alone, the silence of the mansion, the voice message unanswered, the baby she lost, the life he broke. No, she whispered, no more running. The decision landed sure and heavy in her chest. A woman who had once begged for her husband's attention now stood steady in the face of his wrath. The door slammed open, wine tearing through the bakery, and Adrian Moretti stepped inside. He looked nothing like the man she had once tried to love, his hair wet, his suit black and clinging to him, his eyes wild, borderline broken, like something inside him had snapped and never stitched back together. Enzo stepped forward, blocking him. Sir, please. Adrian shoved him aside, eyes locked solely on Lucia. She did not step back, not even an inch. Lucia, he breathed, her name falling from his lips like a prayer and a curse at once. You left me. She stared at him steady. You ignored me. His jaw clenched, rain dripping from his lashes. Why did you go? She laughed softly, a laugh filled with everything she had carried. Because I was dying in that house. Adrian, you let me bleed alone. You let our child die alone. You were not there. You chose her over me. And when you finally listened, it was already too late. Something broke in his expression. He took one step forward, but she raised a hand. Stop, do not come closer. He stopped for the first time in his life. Adrian Moretti obeyed. I searched for you, he said, voice cracking. You were gone, you vanished. I thought someone hurt you. I thought. She shook her head. No, Adrian, you only missed me when I stopped belonging to you. His breath came ragged, the storm outside shaking the windows. I can fix this, he said. I will fix everything. Come home, come back to me. There was a time those words would have wrapped chains around her feet, but now they sounded like echoes from a world She no longer lived in I am home, she said softly. Adrian's gaze flickered, realization landing heavy. You love someone else. She thought of Daniel, the quiet way he listened, the way he treated her like she was human, the way he made her smile without fear. She answered simply, yes I do. Adrian staggered, as if she had physically struck him, his voice a low broken growl. I can kill him. Lucia stepped forward. If you lay a finger on him I will testify. I will destroy you. I will burn everything you built with my own hands. There it was, the threat that finally changed the room. He stared at her, this woman who once trembled at his footsteps, now standing like a blade aimed at his throat. Adrian's voice dropped to a whisper. I loved you. She shook her head. No, you own me. There is a difference. For a long moment silence filled the bakery. Only the storm spoke, then the sound of sirens split the air. Enzo's eyes widened. Adrian turned slowly. Two black SUVs pulled up outside. Federal agents stepping out, guns raised. Adrian looked back at Lucia. You called them? She met his stare, calm, steady, free. No, she said, I did not have to. He had been under investigation for months, his empire crumbling beneath him, his enemies talking, his allies turning, his shadow shrinking. Tonight just happened to be the night it all caught up to him. Agents burst into the bakery. Adrian did not fight, he did not shout, he did not threaten, he only looked at her as they cuffed his wrists. Rain dripping off his jaw, eyes filled with something she had never seen in him before, understanding that she was never coming back, that the woman he ignored, the woman he broke, the woman he lost was gone forever. They dragged him out into the storm. He did not resist, he only whispered her name once, Lucia. When he disappeared into the flashing lights, she closed her eyes, exhaled, and felt the weight of a lifetime fall off her shoulders. Daniel arrived minutes later, soaked from the rain. He ran to her, hands trembling. Are you hurt, Lucia? Are you hurt? She shook her head, then fell into his arms, the sob tearing through her. Release, freedom, rebirth. He held her tight, his hands gentle, his presence steady. A harbor after years of storms. You are safe, he whispered. I have you. You are safe now. Lucia looked up at him, rain mixing with tears, and for the first time in so many years she believed it. The next morning the town glowed gold under the rising sun. The bakery smelled of cinnamon again. Marlene fussed over her people, checked on her, life continued. Gently Lucia stood on the beach, holding the small stone in her hand. She let the waves wash over her feet, the wind lifting her hair, the sun warming her face. She whispered to the sea, I am free. And somewhere miles away in a cold federal holding cell, Adrian Moretti stared at the wall, realizing too late that the call he ignored, the call he silenced, the call he dismissed had been her final goodbye. Thank you all for watching this emotional journey of strength, heartbreak, and freedom. If Lucia's story touched you even a little, tell us where you are watching from, which country, which city. Your support means everything to this channel and it helps us keep bringing these deep stories to life. Make sure you like and subscribe and share the video. Remember, sometimes the call you ignore becomes the goodbye you never recover from. See you in the next story.